We've had a cold snap here in the UK. As you can see, the N74 motorway is pretty treacherous, the River Clyde is almost frozen solid, and there's a high avalanche risk in Peebles. So I'm playing it safe and staying home. Fortunately, the cute thief has been making hay while the sun was shining, even if it seemed a rare event this year, and has something for me to build. Though he's a bit annoyed I took him away from his favourite spot in front of the fire. CT is back warming his beans and has left me with this box, which is a bit on the small side. But size doesn't matter, it's what's inside that counts, so let's see what the cat's dragged in. Well, shiver me timbers, it's a heavy tool trials frame. Though from looking at the size of it, you'd think it was a cross-country frame. Maybe size does matter. I've built some rare frames in my time, and this isn't as rare as some, but it's actually my first time ever seeing one in the flesh, so it's rare for me. I don't know too much about heavy tools. I heard they're an Austrian brand, correct me if I'm wrong, and they had a range of bikes in the 90s and early 2000s. I actually have no idea the year of this frame, but I suspect it's plenty old enough to drink and have had a few divorces by now. Now this is branded as a trials frame, but apparently it's suspension corrected. Here's hoping the BB isn't too low with rigid forks. But I'm always thankful for some power stays. How we managed without these is anyone's guess. But as mentioned, this is possibly the largest trial-specific frame ever made. And you know what? I love it for that. I think there's something cool about riding trials on a larger frame. And it also just looks more like a normal bike, which I don't think is a bad thing. Other than the size, there aren't many other standout features. The only possible exception is this disc mount, quite rare for such an old frame, and I think it looks quite neat too. The lack of bracing between the stays doesn't give me much confidence it would last long though. The head tube, much like me, is very basic. Just a 1 1/8 tube. Not a gusset in sight either. It's a miracle it's still alive. But it does look like it's had an easy life. The condition is great with no dents or scrapes on the front triangle. Other than a little scratch, the chainstays are in great nick too, which is very rare for an old trials frame like this. I did have a laugh at this gusset, and I use that word loosely. It's the most crude one I've ever seen. It's just a rectangle block. Must be working though, as tubular chainstay yokes like this crack very easily, yet there's no signs of stress here, thankfully. I wonder if these marks are from a front mech. Maybe it actually was used as a small XE frame rather than trials. It would explain the condition. The lack of gussets and any CNC parts does save some weight. It feels pretty light and it's definitely well balanced, which gives me hope it will be fun to ride. I was actually curious about the weight, and it's heavier than I thought. Must be those power stays. Despite the lack of features, I'm pretty excited to build this up. As I said, I think the bigger frame just looks really cool, and it's nice to finally get my hands on one of these after all these years. I mean, come on, anyone else think this just looks so cool? I should probably just stop here and hang it on my wall. But that would make a boring video though, so let's get it built, starting the traditional way with the headset first. This is a DDG model from UK shop Supercycles. DDG was a parts/frame brand from the before times. It's basic, but check out the colour. I see a theme appearing. I'm hoping the colours will... Oh, that's not meant to happen. It appears the condition of the frame isn't quite as good as I first thought. The head tube is flared. I don't think cups are meant to go in this easily. The bottom one is better, but not perfect. I have an idea, so to quote a Coldplay song, hopefully everything's not lost. First, I need to degrease the frame and cup. I'm particularly liking WD-40's motorbike brake cleaner these days. Gets stuff sparkling, but doesn't damage paint. Ideal. I'm then going to use stud lock to lock in that studness. I used it on me and it worked really well. But before I fit the top cup, I'll fit the lower cup, which I'll lube up. With the lower cup precisely fitted, it's time to stud the top one in. It'll take some time for the stud lock to set, so to give it the best chance, I'll clamp everything down with my headset clamper for a while. While that sets, I think my headset Bitto wood that I've had since my first retro build should have a proper home too. I know it has lots of fans who like to see it given the proper respect as a legit tool. This is risky though, as it does get smaller with every use, so this might look a bit weird after a few more bike builds. Some time has passed, so hopefully things will stay tight now. Before we continue, let's just take a moment to appreciate how well CT colour matched these two parts. Next up is the fork, which isn't quite as good a match. This is a Pashley Charles fork. Not too much to say about these other than their simple steel fork that was popular back in the day. The colour might not be a perfect match like the headset, but in person it's a much closer match than it looks on camera. This fork is also in great condition, and it has a nice long steerer, which is handy as the frame has a fairly long head tube. Sometimes the top brace will grip the fork, but not this time. I'll just have to get on with showing you what stem I have. Well, here it is, and it's also blue. Definitely a theme going on. It's a retro Planet X model, about 110 by 10 degrees, or 50 degrees if you're American. The paint is in good conditioning, but the branding has seen better days. But the most important thing is that it's a very close match to the frame. The DGG top cap will top things caply. Okay, yep, definitely a theme appearing. Either CT thinks blue is a winter colour, so this is a winter themed bike, or maybe he's aware people can feel pretty blue this time of year and wants to bring awareness to mental healthness. CT and I both hope everyone is doing okay out there. If not, hopefully the fact that 4 completely different brands managed to make 4 completely different blue parts almost perfectly match will make you just that little bit happier. With the build being announced to everyone in my local area, I have to express my disappointment that CT has dropped the ball with the blue theme. I mean, come on, red NS lick bars? He's getting docked some treats for this. But to give him some credit, they should suit the bike pretty well. They have a good shape, are strong, and importantly, fit the older 25.4 clamp stem. Looks pretty cool, and most of the red will be covered by the grips anyway. With the bar fitted, we're nearly done. But first, we need a wheel. And here's one I built earlier. A lot earlier. Did anyone see the Leeson build? Well, this is the same wheel that was on that. Not even my own parts are safe from CT's paws. The hub is a Hope Mono. These are really nice, simple hubs and suits the discless Pashley fork nicely. The rim is a Mavic 721. It's a little burly for the front wheel, but at least I don't need to worry about the strength. It also has a really nice hard anodized sidewall, which is really smooth and works super well with the right brake pads in dry weather. Less well if it gets wet. This rim surface might be an issue this time of year. I would normally grind rims to make them work in the wet, but these are too nice to grind, so I'll have to pick dry riding days only. But rims aside, this is interesting. A tyre I didn't know existed. This is a Schwalbe Black Shark with a rare blue sidewall. I honestly had no idea Schwalbe ever did a blue tyre. I've had a look online and I cannot find any others anywhere, so this is as rare as it gets. The condition is great too, even has tons of tread left. Nice. But how well does it fit? Well, it fits perfectly. Never gets old. Just one thing missing. This Hope quick release should stop the wheel from falling out. It's blue anodized rather than painted, so it'll never match, but as the old saying goes, beggars can't be asking for too much in today's climate. It's nice to be back on track with the blue theme again. And with the front wheel fitted, we're nearly done. Although I suspect it will probably need a rear one too. One like this maybe. Yeah, this is the matching wheel that was also on the Leeson. I wondered where these had gone. The hub is an older Pro 2 single-speed / trials model. They're pretty industrial and heavy, but also super reliable. One major flaw is the lack of engagement points though. I think it has less than 50. I'm used to riding with over 690 points, so this might be a bit of a shock to the system. If you're wondering why there's bolts in a disc mount, that's so I don't squash the mounts if I miss a side op. I learnt this trick the hard way. The rim is the older version of the front, a Mavic 521. These were strong and very popular for downhill and trials, but one downside is that it's a little on the narrow side at 28mm, which limits how soft you can run your tyres on off-camber objects. But hey, at least the rim tape matches the frame. It also has the same CD anodized coating as the front, with some remnants of tar I used to improve my brakes last time I rode it. Again, not really usable in the wet. A Schwalbe knobby Nick tyre will do gripping duties at the back. It's a shame not to have a matching blue tyre, but at least this one has blue graphics and stripe, so it's kinda sticking to the theme. I run a cut down version of this on my Hex and I really love the grip, damping and speed it has, but this fresh one will be a bit more versatile if I choose to ride natural. Well hey, 2 for 2. I'm on fire today. It's needing some accessories next. An 18-tooth cog should suit it nicely. But I don't have a dedicated single-speed spacer kit, so it'll just have to wear a bunch of random ones. No shame in that. The lack of matching tyres doesn't offend me as much as I thought it might. It was quite common in trials to run a coloured front tyre, so it does actually work with the older style of bike. Next up, let's give it a bracket of the arse kind. An old bike like this needs an old model, and this Shimano UN72 will do the trick. Now listen up kids, back when your grandparents rode, there weren't any of these fancy pants external brackets or 30mm alloy axles with splined interfaces. Nope, we had tapered squares. These were pretty awful. Cranks would round off, axles would snap, and they were made of a particularly heavy steel that instantly made any bike feel like it had its own gravity. But on the other hand, the bearings would never ever wear out. So that was cool, I guess. Now, an old frame like this will be very dry, so plenty of lube is needed. That plus slightly loose threads meant I could screw it in all the way by hand. Very satisfying, for us both. Some classic Mildeburn RS7 cranks will be doing cranking duty. These have proven to be some of the best cranks ever made. They're forged, then CNC'd into the optimal wall bashing shape. And yeah, these were on the Leeson too. I need to have some words with CT. These are a bit scraped up, and I'm sure I added some marks myself. Sadly, Trials is brutal on cranks, so it's rare to find pristine ones. Another cool thing about Middleburn is that they were ahead of the game by offering removable spiders before removable spiders were cool. This gives a lot of options depending on your needs. One option is this steel one-piece 16-tooth sprocket and bash. This is what I ran on the Leeson, and it gives the maximum clearance possible. I won't be running this though. It suited the steel Leeson with its skinny tubing and shorter chainstays, but I don't like having too much gap between the rear tyre and bash. So I'll run option 2 instead, the bigger Pro Trials bash guard. This was the standard guard Middleburn offered. Let's just give Middleburn some credit for offering Trials parts despite not being a Trials brand. And they actually still make these parts, which is really cool. This is a chunky unit, and I'm sure once World War III is over, the only survivors will be cockroaches and these bash guards. It takes a 5-bolt 22-tooth chainring, and in this case, a basic steel one will do. This setup really does make me feel like I'm back in the early 2000s again. I'm going with a faithful KMC K610 chain. Another advantage of using a bigger bashed sprocket is that they're less stressful on chains compared with the tiny 16-tooth version. I almost snapped a chain on the Leeson with the smaller one, but fortunately I noticed the link splaying apart before it fully went. Unfortunately, the gear ratio and chainstay length meant I had a pretty baggy chain. I was only a few millimeters away from getting another link out and having it tighter, which is a shame. This extra bagginess gives the tensioner more work to do, and we all know how lazy they can be. But CT has applied a hard-working Tratec one. It might not quite fit with the era of the bike, but these are better than what was around at the time, so I'm not complaining. One cool feature is the open jockey wheel design, which means you can fit a chain without breaking it or undoing any bolts. Very clever. I wondered if this might happen. I purely guessed the chainline when fitting the cog, and it's way out. Please hold one moment while I adjust it. With the chainline now much straighter, things are running smoother. For a trials bike anyway. And as a nice touch, a Tarty Bikes chainstay protector. Fun fact, Tarty Bikes turned 20 years old this month, so happy birthday to them. Please consider them for any of your trials parts needs. Right, well, I could ride it seatless and brakeless, but I'm not. So let's add the more vital parts next. And yeah, that would be the seating arrangements. It's possible to ride without brakes, but not without a seat. Using a quick release clamp which has come out as Trans X. So brave. No idea what make the seat post is, but it ticks the boxes. It's the right size, it's light, and it's got an inline head. I often see people using setback seat posts on retro builds, and in my opinion, they rarely look good. Inline is where it's at. To go on the post and under my buttocks is this saddle. Apparently it's a Gipapimi concept, which I've never heard of before. But like the post, boxes are being ticked. It's low profile, has a pleasing shape, and with the carbon base and titanium rails, it's very light. And when their powers combine, I get a sweet looking combo. With the seating arrangement sorted, the bike's nearly done. But I really should add some brakes now. That's now 5 different brands all coming up with pretty much the exact same blue. What are the chances? This is a Magura HS33 from around 2004. This was a great vintage as these were strong and reliable. 20 years old and still working as it should. Impressive. Oh, and yeah, there is a matching rear one too. These brakes aren't perfect though, far from it. Even with all the correct parts, fitting these is extremely tedious. That's why I've left it so long to fit them. In fact, it's so tedious, I'm not even going to film it. Be right back. Other than a minor meltdown, I have them fitted and working okay. I noticed CT hadn't colour coded the pads, so I made my own blue ones whilst you were distracted. Only issue is I have no idea if these work well or not, but at least they're blue. If they are crap, then at least I have my secret weapon, tar. Kyle North kindly donated this block for me, which should last me the rest of my life. I will need some big pockets to carry it around when riding though. One oversight from Heavy Tools was the lack of hose guides. It's not like trials riders might want to use the most popular trials brake in the world or anything. Fortunately, there's a solution. These adapters. They just clamp into the existing cable guides and provide new hose guides. It's just a neater solution than using zip ties around the whole tube. And with the brakes on, we're nearly finished. Just need to hide these red bits with a pair of bar gloves. An old bike gets an old set of push-ons. I've no idea on the brand, but they'll do. And with some help from my secret ingredient, GT85, they slip on easily and are stuck within moments. I'm actually too excited about getting this finished, so I'm going to rush the pedals. They look like this, feel lightweight, and the original version was extremely popular for trials. Here I am fitting them. The left one was tight, but they went on in the end. And with those fitted, we are actually finished. And how cool does that look? Blue is a cold colour, so I guess it does look quite chilly, doesn't it? I just need to get things lined up and tight and see how it feels. Fortunately, the cold snap thawed as I was building it, but it is still a bit wet and windy. Well, it passes the manual test, and oddly for a trials bike, it passes the wheelie test too. It does have pretty long chainstays, so it will never be a true pogo bike, but it's not too shabby on the rear wheel. But I have to say, it is honestly one of the nicest I've ever felt on the front. This pivot was first try and one of the easiest I've ever done. Back was also first try, but a little bit more effort. And backwards manuals, or wheelies as I keep on getting corrected, are definitely a lot of effort, but I think that's due to the hub more than anything. Spins could be better too. But other than the longer chainstays, it's pretty nice. The BB hasn't ended up too low either. Not sure I'd really want to put suspension on this. Brakes could be better, and this definitely isn't ideal weather for smooth rims. Plus, I think my blue pads might not be the ones. But they are holding up if I pull hard enough. So, what do you think? Is the bigger frame cool, or does it look ugly? Is there too much blue, or should CT have looked for more? As I've said, I think the bigger frame does look really cool, but I'm torn about the blue theme. I feel it needs a splash of colour elsewhere too. But I can't hate how well it all matches. Despite never hearing about this brand of saddle before, I think it suits the bike really well. Here's hoping the sharp corners don't hurt me with the bigger frame putting the seat more in the way. Part of me does want to put V-brakes on purely because of how neat they would be with the frame's V-brake mounts, but then I'd have to take off these perfectly matching Maguras. A tough choice. But the blue tyre is staying. I'm supported by Schwalbe, and I'm stoked CT found such a cool retro tyre that suits the bike theme and era and still keeps my sponsor happy. Speaking of CT, I'd normally get him to come and approve the bike, but he's still grumpy and would rather be in his spot in front of the fire, so I skip the approval and go straight to his payment. And on that note, I'll end it here. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the notifications, and if you enjoyed it, please consider sharing it to friends who might also enjoy it. I also have a Patreon where I release videos earlier, often with extra content. But have a great week, and I'll see you next time. Take care, bye bye.